the return of Let's Talk About Sonic, the podcast about Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic the Hedgehog only, and only Sonic the Hedgehog. My name's Crepe.
My name is Mitt, and we only talk about Sonic. That's a rule, it's a mandate. Any other times that we haven't, you imagine that. It's not real.
It all comes from higher up. I can attest to this. I talk about the mandates often. Sometimes I have a little begrudging affect toward them, but it's what we gotta deal with.
True.
On this podcast, we talk about Sonic the Hedgehog, but today we're gonna talk about Sonic the Hedgehog, and Tails, and Amy Rose, and Knuckles the Echidna.
And they're always around.
They're usually
always
around.
Together.
I think about them together often.
Yeah, they're friends.
I think they are related.
They're important.
They're important
in the cosmic scheme of things.
Right. In the galactic scale of things.
Yeah, in our universe and Sonic's, in real life and out.
If they weren't important, they wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be talking about them right now.
Yeah, exactly. That's the right way to think about it. Because, Sonic and Tails, they're always around. But I feel like Amy kind of dips in and out of importance. And then Knuckles is also he's always there, but it's usually just tangentially speaking, he's there.
Right. It feels like there's a lot of times he doesn't really need to be there, but he's there anyway. And then there's the rare time where it feels like he ought to be there and is nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
It's a little strange. These four are kind of considered the core cast of Sonic the Hedgehog as a franchise at this point. Something that was for sure solidified by Sonic Boom, and we'll be talking about that too. Dr. Eggman's involved also. He's over there, but if we're talking about the protagonists, and I suppose deuteragonists, if you want to get into that, that's who we got.
I feel like the dynamic in terms of when it's a classic or a modern context does make it different, because it's so weird. I feel like Amy is a more important character in the classic series, which is primarily because of CD, but also just generally speaking, I guess, especially more recently. Well, no, actually, no. In general, I think Amy got a lot of spotlight in the classic kinds of games and era.
Yeah. It's weird because a lot of that came from spin-offs after her debut appearance. She didn't really get much in the way of major appearances in the games that I guess, I don't know, the gaming press would have cared about most, or games that people who are big on thinking about the mainline series of Sonic care about most, which whatever about their opinions. But she is very much like a spin-off character in the classic games.
I feel like she's around a lot, especially in the classics. It feels so weird calling them the classics. Because the way that the original games are set up, there's not really a lot of room for recurring characters besides the all-important ones. I don't know where Amy would come back and appear when every single new game introduces a different new set of characters, and they don't tend to return in the next.
True.
It's weird because the progression is there in a way that makes sense. So it feels weird to say that she's not, or she's only around in the spinoffs, because I think the spinoffs dictated a lot of what made up I guess classic Sonic in general at the time, because there were only the 3 games.
That is a big part of it. Yeah, because unless you're in America, it's kind of there were only the 3 or 4 or 5 games. If you were in the UK or presumably other major parts of Europe that Sega was shipping out games to and had game consoles and regularly updated game libraries, you probably think about the Master System games a lot. So you might think of maybe you won't think of Fang since he wasn't on the Master System, but you probably have a bigger attachment to those games. I don't really know how it is if you're in Japan. But kind of the point I'm getting at is you're right. The spin-offs were majorly important since there weren't that many classic games. It's more of that there's a weird reframing in terms of what classic games matter and what other games in that era were supplementary in terms of the way people talk about the Sonic franchise these days.
Yeah.
For me, I think of like Amy was one of the only 5 characters that were in the first Sonic Drift, and one of only 4 you could play as. Is that right? Oh wait, no, Knuckles wasn't there. So yeah, she was only one of 4 characters in Sonic Drift. Like period. So she was a returning character in Sonic Drift 2. She was in Sonic the Fighters.
Yeah, she was in Sonic Drift. Both Sonic Drifts. She was in Sonic R. She was in Sonic the Fighters. She was in a lot of, I want to say, well, a lot of the edutainment games, which is basically just the one.
True.
I think she was in that one.
Yeah. I think
she's
yeah,
in
just Sonic's Game World, right?
Yeah, she was in a lot of the, or at least a handful, more than Knuckles maybe, of the what's the name of the magazine of the artwork that's all in Sonic the Screensaver?
It was a Sega internal magazine, right?
Yeah.
Don't remember the name, but I know what you're talking about.
For some reason, I want to say it's Sega Dreams, but I know that's not right.
I feel like dreams are involved. The word dream or dreams.
But I know that she's in a couple of those pieces of artwork. But yeah, she's in Chaotix as a cameo, which is there.
Yeah, she gets that little cameo in Chaotix. That's true. Yeah, so she was really prominent. Like that's the end statement.
Yeah.
And it's funny because she feels to me still more like a modern character in terms of like the overall franchise. And probably part of that is because she's been in more games that have had that style and that tone. Ever since she had the design change, she's appeared even more. But I think also part of it is that she's had a real change in character tone since Sonic Adventure 2. I would say Sonic Adventure 1, but that's not really true. I feel like the sorts of character traits that you could glean from her, is few and far between that they were in the games pre-Sonic Adventure, were there in Adventure. It's more in Adventure 2 that her character kind of got boiled down to a little more like tags along, gets neglected a little bit, or undermined, or just not viewed as someone who's as capable as everyone else and has the obsession with Sonic. Those were kind of her 2 biggest traits for a little bit.
Which is so weird to think about in hindsight, because I feel like they tried to do that as though it was already established when it really wasn't.
Yeah. There's a lot of that, honestly, in scattered places throughout the Sonic franchise of, like, assuming the player is aware of a character dynamic that didn't exist already.
Yeah.
Amy really got hit with it the worst over the years.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that Amy hasn't really appeared more in the mainline games, because she's arguably more immediately important than Knuckles.
Yeah. That's something I feel like they've been trying to focus on a little bit more. Not super in the games, but definitely like in the franchise as a whole.
Definitely in the comics.
Yeah, she was introduced in the IDW comics before Knuckles was, right?
Probably?
Because I think in the first 4 issues it goes Sonic and Tails, Sonic and Amy, Sonic and Knuckles, Sonic and Tangle. I think that's how it goes.
That makes sense, especially considering her role in the comics.
Right.
Especially early on.
And I feel like there's something else that was making me feel that way recently. Thinking about Sonic and Tails as Amy. Sonic and Tails and Amy is kind of the more important core protagonist cast, with Knuckles showing up sometimes to help.
Was it the 30th anniversary comic?
Might have been the 30th anniversary comic, which brings us back to classic stuff, since that's dipping into how Sega wants, I suppose, the quote-unquote classic Sonic franchise to be perceived. Having Amy just be there as part of it and have her own little thing going on. I don't know, spoilers for the 30th anniversary comic?
Yeah, she's there. I think I don't think we have to go into specific spoilers about it. I think we could just say, like, she's there. she is as important as Sonic and Tails. Like, she has her moments. She's given spotlight. She's treated as the third most important character, I guess. Well, that's not exactly appropriate to say given how the comic goes, but like she's important. Like, she's relevant, I guess.
Yeah, and I like the idea of her being the third major pillar of the main cast.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Sonic Team move forward with that idea, but I don't know if that's like in their minds at all, if it's a goal or something they care about.
I wish it was.
Yeah, because Knuckles doesn't really have a strong place anymore in the cast.
Yeah.
Like, I guess it's not fully true, but like he shouldn't, by all rights, have the place that he's had for years, and I feel like they're starting to realize that.
Yeah, they're realizing it in a very weird way. Because they dipped in and out of him having a role in the greater universe early on in 3D, like with the Master Emerald and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And then they just kind of forgot about it. But now he's just around less, kind of. He's not in Unleashed, but Amy and Tails are. So there's that.
Right.
Nobody is in Colors except for Sonic and Tails. And then in Lost World, it's Sonic, Tails, and then Amy and Knuckles are on their home planet, which is...
Yeah, and they get equal screen time.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. And then Generations and Forces, everyone is there, so it doesn't really count.
Right. I would say that Amy and Knuckles also get equal screen time in Forces.
Yeah, because with Knuckles, the whole joke is that he's in a role that he's not supposed to be, but Amy is the one who is, like, I guess the actual leader.
Which is still weird.
Yeah, they don't do a very good job characterizing these two. But Knuckles really shouldn't be around that much. He kind of exists to be a loner, and it's kind of weird that he's been, I guess, adapted into being the third member of Team Sonic. Like, he's allowed to be there. It's just strange how it shook out.
Yeah. It's never felt quite right.
Yeah.
I guess that's not true. It stopped feeling quite right to me at some point, and I'm not sure when that was. Because when I was younger, I thought it was really cool. And to be fair, I've always liked Knuckles as a character. I always thought he was really visually interesting. I've always had a minor attachment to kind of anti-hero or minor antagonist type characters. But at some point, the luster of minor antagonist character being cool and then joining the good guys and being cool there wore off with Knuckles because it stopped making sense for him to be there.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that it never really made sense for him to be there in the first place with his role as the Guardian of the Master Emerald, which they never really relieved him of, which is definitely something they could do. I think we've maybe brainstormed about this in a much earlier episode, but I know we've had this conversation in general.
Yeah.
Just that they should really give him a character arc, or rather, they probably should have. We're kind of very well past the point when it would have been a good time to do it, but
I know.
They should have given him an arc where he learns that it's not necessarily his responsibility to uphold something that was put onto him before he was even given the chance to have a say in it. Like, his duty as Guardian of the Master Emerald is like, he doesn't have a choice, which kind of sucks. And kind of the whole theme of Sonic is freedom. So it feels weird that, like, he's never had an arc where Knuckles realizes, okay, well, I've got all these friends now who I can rely on to help me guard the Master Emerald when the time comes. So I can still be the Guardian if I want to, but I don't have to sit here and do nothing while I do it.
Yeah.
And, like, if that happened unspokenly, then great, but we probably should mention that, because it's less so now that, like, oh, it happened off screen and we forgot. that the Master Emerald exists. It's not important anymore.
Yeah, it's instead of feeling like an active decision to write that element of the story out, it felt a lot more like Akira Toriyama forgetting launch existed. The thing for me is that I still don't actually know if it's too late for Knuckles to get that kind of arc in canon. I think it might just be that on some level I still really want to see that happen, and I don't want to turn to fanfic because I'm just not much of a reader, and right. I don't like going through the process of sitting down with something, investing time, and figuring out if I like the writing style and writing tone and authorial style of someone who writes. It just doesn't work super well for me. So like that angle is completely out for me. Good for anyone who can get their fix from that, but just not for me, unfortunately. So I still kind of want that in the overall fiction of Sonic the Hedgehog as a thing that game developers are providing to us. And that want is like making it hard for me to figure out. It makes it hard for me to divorce that feeling from like a full understanding of whether or not it'd actually be a good idea at this point.
Yeah, it does feel a little bit like the time's passed, but part of it is just where we've been at with regards to writing in Sonic, that it feels like now it's like if they did it, it'd feel kind of out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
There's been so much fluff for so long that it would feel weird to have a really dedicated and thoughtful character arc for a character who's been around forever about an element that hasn't been relevant since like 2001.
Yeah, that's a big part of it too. It would really only work if they again try to commit themselves to starting the series continuity off fresh, which that's a whole nother thing. People have made calls for a restart, it's a reboot or soft reboot from the dawn of time relative to the Sonic franchise. And again, I don't know where I sit on that either, because I feel in my heart that ideally Sonic the Hedgehog would benefit from a new perspective on all the elements that it has, and that would come with a new attempt to tell its story.
Mm-hmm.
And to some degree, that's what we're going to be getting out of the movies, which is good. But we can only ever expect so much from Hollywood productions when it comes to stories actually making fun and inventive use of things we already are familiar with.
Yeah.
So it's hard to use that as a full justification. On the other hand, I don't really trust it in Sonic Team's hands yet either. So it's kind of like why Sonic as a franchise has felt like it's floating in a weird limbo for a long time, is who can we trust with it, who has the access to make commercial products with it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the best place to do it would be the comics, but I don't know.
I'm just like not as much of a comics fan as I'd like to be.
It does feel like if they did it in the comics, it would feel not like a cop-out, but it would be like, okay, well, you're doing it here, where it's not that unexpected for you to be doing it.
I'm not sure if I feel quite that way. I can get excited for the sorts of things that happen in the IDW comics and the writing that goes into them, and the thoughtfulness about each individual element of the story and where it's headed. Like that I can get behind, and I do enjoy when I sit down to read those comics. The problem is that like comics as a medium doesn't grab me as much as it should. Mm-hmm. And also the comics market sucks flat out. That's just getting into general problems with selling stories.
I do think that like if they did it in the comics, it's weird because it's a mix of like, oh, well, yeah, it's not that crazy if you do it here, and oh, well, it's not happening in the game, so it's not that important. Because the IDW comics are like quasi-canon. They're strangely canon.
They're like canon adjacent.
Yeah, they're canon until they're not, which is to say, like, they will continue happening in their own canon, which is canon, until a new game comes out, and that's the next, like, step, basically.
Yeah. Especially, like, that's expected because that's been the track record. There isn't, aside from, like, recurring characters, there's nothing that connects Generations to Lost World to Forces. There's nothing that connects Generations to Forces. There's one thing that connects Colors to Lost World, but most people unanimously agree that the Wisps shouldn't have come back in the capacity they did. And the overall thing is that there's not really, like, a consistent setting and tone and approach to the world in the last decade of Sonic games. And so if the IEW comics keep going down their consistent storytelling path using Forces as the basis, which is what they've been doing, there's no guarantee that whenever Sonic 2022 comes out, it'll have anything to do with what's going on with, like, the extended canon of the comics.
Yeah, it's probably just going to be its own thing.
Yeah.
It might even be a whole new thing based on recent developments, or at least developments that have become more prevalent and easy to hear. But I don't know.
Gotta love the ease with which leaks are propagated.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not even talking about leaks. I'm talking about just the fact that the two worlds are gone, apparently.
Oh, that's what you're talking about. Oh. Well, we all know Ian Flynn can't talk about that just yet.
Yeah, but there's is apparently a reason, and it's apparently a good enough reason for him to be happy about it, so we'll see.
This is recorded before Ian Flynn presumably talks about it publicly. Presumably. We'll see.
Well, wait. Define it, because he has talked about
like,
it publicly, but he hasn't disclosed what it is.
That's what I mean. Like, goes into any sort of detail, because all he said in the Bumblecast multiple times is, I wouldn't worry about two worlds. I'm just saying, I wouldn't worry about it. Like, that's the exact thing he said multiple times. And, you know, that says a lot. It's just not specific.
Yeah, I mean, he did clarify. He was able to at least say that it's good and relieving that we don't have to worry about it. It's not like, don't worry about it, move on, it doesn't matter. It's, don't worry about it, it's not a factor anymore. He just can't say why.
A lot of it's in his tone, the way that he's talking about it.
Yeah.
Presumably, he is building up to either something he'll get to say or something that someone else is going to say, which is why I put the disclaimer.
How about Sonic characters, huh? They exist.
Yeah, that was a big tangent going off of Knuckles. To kind of bring it back to him, I really do miss when he actually was a loner, because he had... I think about this a lot. I think Sonic Adventure is kind of a touchstone for how I enjoy the major cast to some degree, because whenever I think about my highlights with Knuckles, it's always the opening and closing scenes of his story in Sonic Adventure where he's just talking to himself and being introspective. It's so interesting because that never happens outside of that game and that character. Not never, but it's never given like the space to breathe and be something that the audience really takes in the way that it's presented with Knuckles in that game. And I always liked that a lot. It was really interesting because it allowed us to actually see him as a character with like concerns and thoughts and feelings about what he's doing and where he is, and not just a gullible dumb guy.
Yeah. It's never happened before or since, and it would be nice to see it again.
Yeah. And it also just, like, it humanizes him. I think that's a big deal.
Yeah.
I think a lot of other characters, especially the major ones, have had humanizing moments in different parts of the franchise. But that's kind of the only time Knuckles has had it.
Yeah, definitely.
So first off, Knuckles is not dumb. He's not, like... I should be, like, a little softer in that, too, I think. He's not, like, purely a comic relief character. He's not someone who is made exclusively to fall for fall for traps and say nonsense things. Unless you've only watched Sonic Boom.
Yeah.
And I get it. Kids' cartoons kind of really like to have that kind of character. But Knuckles has never been that before or after.
Yeah, Sonic Boom kind of... It really went out of its way to have new interpretations for all the characters, or at least ones that are different from the immediate ones from the games. Sonic is kind of like just complete depresso college student. Like not self-deprecative, but like, I guess irony poisoned?
Yeah.
Maybe that's not even right.
Well, it's like irony poisoned in the sense that he doesn't really... He's really cynical? I guess that's kind of more it.
He's cynical.
Yeah, I guess that's not necessarily being irony poisoned, you're right. But he is a much more cynical version of himself.
Yeah. He's much more mature, for better or worse. He's much more cynical. And it's kind of weird to see because it's Sonic. Knuckles is just portrayed as a meathead. He's an idiot, and that's the whole joke. Tails and Amy are kind of basically the same, but they're both just a little more witty and snarky and just like a little more cynical, which is just the Sonic Boom way.
Yeah. I try to think about like what's interesting about Tails and Sonic Boom, but I'm not sure if there really is much. I haven't seen enough of the show to like get a full reading on everything they've done with every character. But I can still only really think of times that Tails has done anything that's like something none of the other characters would have done, and it was just his mechanical knowledge.
Yeah.
He's just the mechanic.
I do think that his Boom portrayal has kind of bled into the mainline games a little bit, especially with like Team Sonic Racing, where he's a lot more edgy, I guess.
He's going through a phase, it's fine.
Yeah, it's a little funky for Tails to be doing the things he does in that game.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Amy is just the nice one. And she is still snarky and cynical, but she's also the nice one.
Amy is the girl.
Yeah. Which, like, sucks. She's a better written girl than a lot of other children's cartoons have, and especially children's cartoons have had. But she's still just the girl.
Yeah.
That does kind of, like, bring me back to thinking about Amy's personality in general, though. I struggle to think of times that she's had, like, foundational personality-defining moments outside of, like, Sonic Adventure. Aside from being obsessed with Sonic.
Yeah, she doesn't really get very much of that. I think, like, it's weird. We've kind of looped back around, because at her inception, a lot of people... Okay, well, I can't say literally, like, when she came out, that's what the perception was, because I don't know. But I feel like earlier on, I saw a lot of pushback against Amy, because it's like, oh, she's just the pink version of Sonic. It's like Minnie Mouse to Mickey Mouse. It's just lazy character design. And I think that's still a little prevalent, but I feel like at the very least I've come around on it. It feels like it's looped back around to being a little bit, I guess, reclamative, if that's a word. Because Amy's classic character design is still, like, smart. It's hard for me to say, oh, well, her looking like Sonic is a bad thing, because it's visual language through association. Sonic doesn't look like a hedgehog, but they tell you he's a hedgehog, so you know he's a hedgehog because they tell you. So Amy looks like Sonic, and Amy's name is Amy Rose, or Rosie the Rascal, not Amy the Hedgehog. So you know by association to Sonic that she is a hedgehog as well. And now with her modern design, that's really not very well communicated, like, at all, which is why I'm not that big on her modern design, even though I know it's probably far more popular than the classic design is.
Right. I have, like, two major sticking points with her modern design. One of them, okay, I have three, but the third one extends to all of female Sonic characters, so we can just toss it out. The first one being that her color palette is strange. I don't know, like, it's not bad for a character it's not inherently bad for a character to be very actually, what's the color composition term I'm looking for? She's just pink, red, and white. So she just fits in a single, very small slice of the spectrum of color, especially with her skin tone, because their skin tone tends to lean either identically to Sonic's or a little pinker, so that like brings it even further in with her existing color palette and her clothes and her quills.
Yeah, she's basically monochromatic.
Monochromatic, thank you. Yeah. She's pretty monochromatic, and yeah, I guess like so is Knuckles a little bit, aside from the green and yellow on his shoes, or so is Tails because he's yellow or orange and red and white, but like they're not in the same way that Amy is, because with other Sonic characters, it's easy to look at them as mostly one big block of color with some highlights here and there. Usually the skin tone, like Sonic's skin tone, pops on him, and their shoes and gloves, because white's going to pop on almost any Sonic character, and usually they have a shoe color that pops on them too, or a part of their shoe that does. I feel like Amy, because she wears the dress that obscures like most of her body, and her shoes go so far up her legs compared to other characters, and because her shoes have white on them more prominently than other characters, and her gloves and her dress has white on it, it brings white more into her overall color composition and brings red more into her overall color composition. So it feels like she is red, white, and pink all at the same time, rather than one central color with other contrasting bits.
Yeah, it feels like what she does is close to what Tails does, but Tails is still not monochromatic because orange is not red.
Mm-hmm.
Orange
yellow's
is the
not
combination. Yeah, orange is the combination of red and yellow, which means that Tails has, I guess, a secondary color scheme. That's probably not a thing. I say as the art person who has an education in art. But
It was like a neighboring color scheme or something.
yeah, it's not straightforwardly going from pink, which is explicitly a lighter red, to red. It's hue shifting. You're shifting from yellow or orange over to red, and that's what makes him work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I want to like get into an opinion, but I don't know if it's necessarily relevant. I'll put it in my pocket and we'll come back to it later because we're talking about Amy.
Yeah.
I feel like her classic design, which is very all over the place, it's a lot of different colors, it still works despite the fact that there's so many different colors because none of them clash and they're all muted. Amy does something different than a lot of the other characters that I think a lot of people downplay that is equally as important to character design, which is varying up your shades to keeping them all distinct. And Amy uses very similar shades for a lot of her different colors on her outfit as a way to bridge them together without clashing as much as they would otherwise. If they were all different, if some of the colors were lighter and some of them were darker, that would clash a lot more than they do. But the color of her fur and the color of, we'll say, like her blouse, which, if memory serves, is kind of like an orange, like a little bit of a saturated orange. Those two, the pink and the orange, they come together in a way that makes your brain read, oh, these are more or less the same color. Because they're the same shade and they're also close enough on the color wheel to do the same thing. But they're different enough to work in their different contexts. Amy's outfit in the classic version is very segmented. Because the top of her head, her body, and then her legs and her feet all use different color schemes that work on their own, which maybe don't necessarily make like a fully harmonious character design, but they all work, and they all work individually.
Yeah. I agree with this. I think also your point about shades on her design kind of explains why a lot of a lot of like different official art of Amy back in the day, or a lot of people's different drawings of classic Amy, or different sprite work for her to like make her work in other Sonic games just feels a little off, because they start messing with the balance of the different colors on her in her outfit.
Yeah.
You start getting like different brightnesses, different saturation levels, and suddenly things start to separate more, or things that didn't pop before pop now, and it feels like too much.
Yeah, and we even found that out ourselves when
Yeah.
we had this conversation privately, and then we ended up tweaking Amy's classic design to try and find a lower color count outfit for her, and nothing ever really clicked, because it always felt like something was missing. And that's because, like I said, every single part of her has its own color harmony, so if you remove colors to do that, it just doesn't feel as correct. Like, I think part of it boils down to the fact that we are able to view classic Amy differently than a lot of people, which is a weird thing. Like, someone who says, "Oh, I don't like classic Amy's design. All the colors, there's too many colors." I can't view the design that way. It doesn't register in my head in a way that I can see it that way, so I can't agree. And like, this is like weirdly breaking apart the psychology of having an opinion. But like, I feel very strongly about that like for some reason I can't see the design in such a way where it clashes, because I see it the way that I see it, and it just doesn't.
Interesting. I've had like minor qualms with Amy's design before, and definitely part of it came from like, I just don't like orange that much as a color. Like that kind of part of my life where I decided I didn't like a specific color, and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. I think the only way you can quote unquote fix Amy's design, classic Amy's design, is to like radically retool it. Like drop all the elements that it already has. Because little tweaks don't do it for what she has.
Yeah. I definitely think the green and the orange especially are two really important colors, but if you have those without the blue, it leans so much warmer than it does without it. Like, and her blue is only in the shoes. So I think it's really crazy how much just getting rid of that affects how the entire composition of her outfit feels.
Yeah. I actually have like an interesting little tidbit on that too. If you think back to Sonic CD and the actual graphics that are in the game, Amy's sprites for the 3 times she shows up in game don't even have the blue on her shoes. They're purple. And she looks wrong.
Huh.
I can only assume that had to do with limited palettes, because the Sega CD, despite being a pretty powerful add-on, still relied on the Genesis for a lot of actual processing of things.
Right.
So it probably still worked with a lot of Sonic CD. Probably still worked through a lot of the Genesis existing palette limitations for on-screen graphics. Amy's shoes use the same sort of magenta, purple, pink that her spines do in that game.
Interesting.
So she really only has that, the green, the orange, which I think is just her skin tone too, and the white.
Yeah. That sounds right.
Yeah. So it's easy to see, even in her first game appearance, that like without the right color balance, her design feels weird.
Yeah. Something that I do think is interesting color-wise is Tails, because I know a lot of people like to give him blue shoes.
Yeah.
So blue and orange are opposite of each other on the color wheel, and that's why, Sonic and Tails have an interesting color dynamic with each other. You could say the same thing for Mario and Luigi, or even Wario and Waluigi. That basically covers the whole color wheel, but
Yeah.
they're all opposite of each other, which I think those are complementary colors. I don't know. It's been a while since high
it's
school.
complementary colors.
Yeah. So like, I don't think Tails needs to have blue shoes, which I know is a very popular fan interpretation, because I understand the philosophy behind it, but every time I see it, it doesn't look right, and I think I could say why. I think it differentiates Tails from Sonic too much, because they are supposed to complement each other, and that's the big thing. Is that they're supposed to look very nice standing next to each other, and Tails having his white and red shoes gives him a little more harmony with Sonic. It kind of grounds him on Sonic's kind of design wavelength, where they both have the same colors going into their shoes. It's just that their fur color is different, which creates a better dynamic, I think.
Yeah. Kind of extrapolating from that too, I think about how Ray is one of the only other major characters, at least right now, who has like significantly differently colored shoes from the rest of the main cast. And obviously that was picked up from whoever decided to make that design change for the Archie comics midway through its run with Ian Flynn.
Yeah.
But when that got picked up into Mania and then subsequently into Ray's every appearance after that, it became kind of like a defining characteristic for him, at least in my view. And I think it works really well for him, not just because the blue works better with his shade of yellow than it does with Tails' shade of orange. Not even getting to how Tails' shade has changed over the years in the games and how he's a lot yellower now and I don't like it. But it works well with his color composition, and it kind of communicates something about his character, I think. Kind of distancing him from the personality that other characters in the main cast have and make him feel different in some way. And that can be demonstrated in different ways. I feel like the easiest interpretation is he's hyperactive. He's kind of, he's just like excitable and likes to do whatever comes to mind first, compared to other characters who are more grounded or interested in the people around them and how their actions will affect them. Ray comes off more like a character who will just kind of spontaneously do things and then like realize the repercussions later. He's also just silly and goofy, and giving him that element in his character design helps distance him from other characters visually in that way, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's important that someone has that color palette, and I just don't think it should be Tails because of his relationship to Sonic. I think that Sonic and Tails should have some color palette similarities because it's important to reflect their dynamic in that way. And Ray having it, like you said, to distance himself from Sonic, to give him his own personality and look, does that. There is something to be said about the fact that red and white in general is an interesting color through line with a lot of Sonic characters, because even Knuckles has that.
Yeah.
Mighty does too, so.
Yeah, except for a later Archie comics, and I don't know, 50-50 on that one.
Well, like, not even his shoes, just like his color palette in general, because like even his shell and his eyes, that creates, a red and white, and then there's the black. So you can't escape red and white when you're Sonic.
No, you can't. I guess that's why they changed Amy's design.
Yeah, exactly. See?
I play my trump card, Big the Cat. No white on that bad boy. Sorry, I meant to say red, but I said white anyway.
There is lots of white on that bad boy. I think... Okay. The addendum to my statement that I'm going to make retroactively is the Chaotix introduced basically exclusively secondary and tertiary colors to the Sonic cast. Because Vector is green, Charmy's yellow, which doesn't count, But actually, at the time, nobody else was really yellow because Tails was orange, so that still filled a role. And then SPO was purple. So you had Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. That's blue, orange, red. Yellow is Charmy. Green is Vector, and purple is SPO.
Yeah.
Basically all the major colors in the color wheel. So, and then when they decided that, Team Chaotix is modern now, you can't have them anymore. They still had Team Hooligan, which is the exact same color palette. So.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. That's funny. Charmy ended up leaning more orange in later games, which is very funny since Tails ended up leaning more yellow. So it still works. I feel like I had something more to say on Amy. Oh, I know what it was. I don't like modern Amy's spines. I don't like them.
Does she even have them?
Yeah. They're hair. They're hair now.
Oh, that's what you meant by spines. Yeah, I don't like them either.
Yeah. It's... One, it doesn't make her look like a hedgehog, which you pointed out earlier. It severs, like, the visual language tie between her and Sonic. Two, it looks like hair.
Yeah.
Three, okay, here's the big one. So, Amy was kind of always depicted as a character who didn't have the same abilities as Sonic. Sure, okay. She was never playable in any context where she could really demonstrate that in terms of how Sonic rolls like a buzzsaw. Theoretically, she could have too, because she had the same spines as him. I guess the time they could have shown that off would have been Sonic the Fighters, but they didn't. Fine, you can maybe assume that she can't do that. Sonic Adventure comes around, they're like, yeah, she can't do that, which is shown in her design. Okay, I get it. Flash forward, not even to Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, we'll just skip right over that, don't worry about it, to Sonic Heroes, where they're like, yeah, she can do that now. Okay. So why are her spines like that?
Yeah. I guess part of that is like the spinball is less so Sonic turning into a buzzsaw and cutting through things, and now more so collateral, I guess, like a wrecking ball almost.
Yeah. The homing attack kind of did that.
Yeah. But also just the visual language of the spin jump in 3D.
Mm-hmm. For sure, for sure. It makes some amount of sense, because it's a different look compared to 2D, where it's purely profile. You're looking at a disc instead of an orb.
Yeah, exactly.
I definitely think part of it, though, is like the way the homing attack has always made Sonic jump off of enemies. Or at the very least, the way that's definitely made him do that since like Heroes onward.
Yeah.
That bounce makes it feel a lot more like you are a ball bouncing off of things that you strike. I don't like modern Amy's spines.
Yeah, I'm not that big on modern Amy in general. I could be very vindictive about it. Because, like, she is a very popular character design, and I understand why, because, like, especially now, she is definitively, like, the cute girl one.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know, it feels like in order to make Amy an adventure, they really just erased all of her character traits that she had going into it. And that's frustrating, because she definitely did have, like, very definable character traits beforehand that are just not there anymore because they aged her up a little bit, and now she's like the city girl living on her own and doing her own thing. That's fine. But before, Amy was like the little sister type, and I kind of wish that they kept doing that because it was interesting.
Yeah. It's a more fun dynamic than her being independent, I think, is to kind of have like, okay, so Tails to some degree was that, especially in US media before the turn of the millennium. Tails was that kind of character to Sonic, a little sibling who depended on him and looked up to him and learned life lessons and how to act from him constantly. And I don't think he has to not be that, but I think there's merit in having two characters like that and then explore the dynamic between those two characters then. Whether it's stuff like knowledge and behavior trickling down from Sonic to Tails to Amy, or something like both them looking up to Sonic and figuring out how they feel about each other. Like, I think there's interesting character stuff there.
Yeah.
They haven't shown any interest in doing that with any other like little kid characters they've introduced since.
It's really strange whenever modern Amy goes back to classic Amy mannerisms. Like, the whole crushing on Sonic thing makes no sense now with an older design. It's even weirder now that she looks like she's like, I don't know, like 16, 17, even though she's not.
Yeah. I mean, she looks the same age as Sonic is the problem.
Yeah, because when you get stuff like in Sonic Battle where she kind of pushes like the pretend, this is our baby, we're the parents, we got to take care of the baby. It's like extra weird because she's too old to be doing that. But if that was like classic Amy where she's clearly supposed to be little, it'd still be stupid writing, but it'd fly a little better.
Yeah. I also think back to how like all of it started just with the implication that she was a little infatuated with him because he saved her life once. Like, that's fine. That's all Sonic Seed he had for us.
Then it dominated her entire existence.
Yeah. Ooh, I was trying to figure out how to like get off of Amy and Knuckles a bit for this episode. Sorry to pull the carton a bit. But that really, the way you just said that reminded me of exactly how I feel about Tails.
Mm-hmm.
Because dominating his whole personality is exactly what happened with Tails and like science and gadgetry.
Yup.
It's another sort of thing where I can't really say I've never liked it, but I could definitely say ever since I started critically analyzing it, I've not liked it.
Yeah, Tails being the tech head is definitely... It's weird and dissociative, I guess, for him.
He's still a child, right? He's supposed to be, right? He is still supposed to be 8 years old, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So, like, I'm not saying fiction can't have little kids who are really smart and intuitive with technology and just make stuff all the time. Like, there's plenty of fiction out there that explores that in ways that's fun and enjoyable. But I think about Tails, and I think it's just not charming in the way that they execute it with him. Not helped that a lot of it has been backed with smart aleckiness or just like him being kind of boring because that's all he does.
Yeah, I want to like... I don't mean this to be like... Okay, I don't mean to say this to knock on how you phrased it, but I do feel like... This popped in my head as you were saying it. I feel like because Sonic Team characterization in general is so bad at keeping to their canon ages, we might as well just disregard it when it comes to critiquing the character, because like nobody acts their age. That's kind of like a consistent problem, and it can be more problematic for some characters than others, like with Amy doing complete maturity mismatch stuff in Sonic Battle. But I feel like with Tails, the bigger issue is just how his personality has shifted completely towards being snarky and witty and like Redditory.
Yeah. I do want to hear you on that, but I just want to interject that like part of the reason I was getting at the way I was is that I've kind of like in retrospect I felt this way about him from Adventure 2 onwards. There's a little bit of an Adventure 1 also, but mostly in Adventure 2 where he makes the tornado actually, what is it called? I can never remember. He makes the new mech.
Yeah.
He's been very focused on weird gadgets and being a tech whiz at the behest of anything else interesting about him. Sonic Adventure 2 at least had other character stuff going on, but then it's just not really present ever again. Because I think about stuff like 06 and Unleashed, where in Unleashed, his whole thing is that he made a radar that they're using the whole game. And he doesn't really do much else, partially because Chip is there. But
Yeah.
that was before like the writing turn that made him really snarky and obnoxious.
Yeah. I didn't mean to say it to knock what you were saying at all. It's just it's something that came into my head because I know that we especially talk about the character ages a lot.
Yeah.
And just because it's such a sweeping issue, I almost wonder if they just don't care anymore.
I'm sure they don't.
They're allowed to not care about it, and it's fine. I guess it just sucks.
Yeah, it would be cool if they didn't purport that they cared.
Yeah. But
also, it's okay. My feelings are a little hurt, but I'll be okay.
It's okay. I do agree with you. I do think that Tails' entire personality revolving around his tech is just boring. Because it's not a personality. It's like, it's what he likes to do, I guess. But when he's basically just demoted to like, I've invented this new thing today in this episode, and we're going to use it to stop the bad guy. And that's like, okay. Tails, where'd you go?
Yeah. Part of the reason I still like the mechanic kid angle for Tails is that there was a lot of time in the way that Sonic media was written where he was doing this kind of stuff where it felt like it was paired with a childish curiosity, where he was exploring a field of work because he was a little kid who was really interested in it, and because he was excited about the things he can do and the things he can show. It's the sort of thing where, like, I can see someone his age making something and being really excited to show his cool friend Sonic the Hedgehog what he made and see how he reacts because he's 8 years old. He's a happy and fun little kid. And that sort of element not being part of it, aside from the overall issue of there not really being any personality paired with the trait anymore at all, like, that whole sentence got away from me. I liked that aspect of it, and with that gone, they haven't like replaced it with anything.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole intro to Sonic Adventure, is he makes a plane out of, like, a trash can, and then he just jams a Chaos Emerald in the engine, and he crashes it. And, like, that's the kind of stuff that I want to see him do, is just make dinky little, like, I don't know, Pinewood Derby planes with, like, eldritch crystals just jammed into them to make them work. They should be, like, the most impossibly functional pieces of technology ever. Not like, I made a radar that will do everything for us.
Yeah, if I can, like, spin on that, too. A lot of the, like, inventiveness of Tails in recent games, in, like, the last decade and a half, or a little more even, has been very, like... No, I'm exciting that too far. A lot of Tails' inventiveness in, like, the last decade has been very... I made a thing, I'm going to tell you about it, here's what it does, and then it does this for us the whole game. Whereas before, there was always that element of character interaction to him bringing up things that he's done. He'll, in Sonic Adventure, when he's made the Tornado 2, he's not telling Sonic about it because it's going to solve all their problems, and he's telling Sonic about how it all works. He's telling Sonic about it because they're looking for the Chaos Emeralds, and they're going to go do that. And he's telling Sonic because he's Sonic's friend, and they're talking about the thing they're going to go do. Does that make sense? I feel like I kind of obfuscated my point. The point is more that it leads to an interaction between the characters that furthers the plot, rather than a character beat that's showing the kind of person Tails is.
Yeah, he should be explaining how it works to Sonic because he's excited that he made it and he wants to show Sonic how it works, not strictly in service of the plot. Like, it should still be in service of the plot, but Tails should be overexcited for himself because he made it and he gets to help.
Yeah. Or it's like really simple and not in depth and like slowing the pacing down.
Yeah.
It's also kind of why I wish I feel like I it's kind of why I wish I had like a better grasp on how they approach that for Tales of Sonic Boom, because it's probably still in line with with like the grievances I have with his writing in the games. But I don't know that, so I don't want to make a confident statement.
I do think he's a little more tech heady than the alternative in Boom, yeah.
Hmm. Now, I know this is a big subject, but how do we feel about the character of Sonic the Hedgehog?
He's a blue guy.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, okay,
And get
that
this,
makes sense.
he runs good.
Okay, all right, yeah, I'm interested. I'm invested. Okay.
So to pull back the curtain on the bit, I do think that Sonic running good, specifically, and it not being like a superpower of his, is something that I like that the games don't really do much on. I don't care about Sonic if he's like, oh, I've got super electric powers. Like,
Mm,
not to be vindictive of the movie, but it's okay if the movie does it. I just want it to stay in the movie. I
yeah,
want
hopefully.
Sonic's ability to run fast to just be him running fast.
Yeah, I don't really care if we ever get an explanation. Like, obviously, they tried to in both of the comics. Sorry, by both of the comics, I mean Fleetway and Archie, not IDW. I hope they don't
Right?
try to
Yeah.
do that in IDW. I don't think they will,
Yeah. I
but
don't think they will either.
I hope they don't in the games.
I really don't. Yeah, I don't want there to be an explanation, or if I do, the explanation is just that he runs fast. That's it. Like,
Yeah,
I would go so far as to say I don't even care if he goes so fast that he like breaks the sound barrier or anything. I just want him to run good.
yeah.
He's just a guy that likes to run and he's good at running, and that's it.
If we're in this now, which is like what I wanted, um, I think Sonic's character is at its best when he is a laid back individual with a strong sense of good who doesn't actually really want to get caught up in things, but will keep doing it because it's the right thing to do. In the sense that like he would much rather just be lying around or running somewhere and seeing sights and just picking up on exciting stuff or taking a break. But what he does spend a lot of his time doing is helping people out of bad situations, and it's good, and he feels good about it. He's also just like, yeah, I could go take a nap. It sounds pretty good right now.
Yeah, I do think IDW does a pretty good job preserving that.
Yeah. I always think about like the beginning of the last story in Sonic Adventure, or the Sonic OVA, several episodes of Sonic X.
Yeah, Sonic and Sonic X exists to basically be a cryptid and go do whatever the hell he wants. To do whatever he wants, and never be on screen as much as possible, and to completely avoid being around the real protagonist of the show.
Yeah. we've ragged on the writing and tone of the last decade of games plenty enough, but just a reminder, Sonic is not a more fun character just for being a wisecracker.
Yeah,
Like he can have things to say. I think that's important. I think every character should have things to say, but he doesn't have to say things for the sake of having things to say.
yeah. I think that's why I like his portrayal in Sonic Adventure 2 so much, is because every time he says something smarmy, it's always with 100% intent, and it's always
Yeah.
a different kind of intent every time.
It's that sort of like Spider-Man quality where like he's not saying stuff to be funny to the camera, he's trying to get under people's skin.
Yeah. He does it because he does not respect you.
Yeah. And good. You in brackets do not deserve respect.
Yeah.
And Sonic the Hedgehog knows this, and he will pinpoint that. It's also part of why, like, while his portrayal in Boom is entertaining on, like, a surface level, it still feels very strange for him.
Yeah. I definitely agree there. I'm not super big on that portrayal. I feel like a lot of Roger's portrayal of Sonic has ended up being a little more, I guess, cynical, if not just whatever. He's decent in Forces. He has
That's the most invested he's sound.
Yeah, he has some moments in Forces.
Yeah, because even Griffith had a lot of that kind of energy in his performances. Like the energy that like a better energy for the character is what I mean.
Right. It's so strange. I really just can't get on board 100% with Jason Griffith like I know a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Like he's not bad. I just don't really care that much, I guess.
Yeah, I guess I kind of feel similarly. It means that, like, when I go and listen to voice clips from Black Knight, it strikes me how much better he sounds in particular places compared to every other performance he's given to Sonic.
Yeah.
It's easier to, like, appreciate the highs of that game because I don't really have, like, a big opinion of his performance as a character as a whole. I don't know. I don't know if I've had the chance to point this out before, but for a lot of the missions that are in Black Knight, Sonic will have this voice-acted line, like, trying to confirm what he has to do to succeed in the mission. And I don't know what the voice direction for that game was like, but, like, in those particular lines, this is just me listening to the game files somewhat recently, he sounds, like, really conversational and natural, and I'm like, whoa, where did this Jason Griffith Sonic come from?
Like 9 years of experience.
Yeah. Really, though. God, 9 years. Yeah, about right. 8 or 9.
Yeah, something like that.
Depends on when Sonic X started. I don't remember.
Me neither. This is the double-edged sword of Sega never committing to having one Sonic voice actor until Roger Craig Smith.
We still don't even know if that's a committal yet.
It's been a committal. Like, he's been around the longest for sure.
Yeah, I just mean that, like, there's a strong likelihood he'll be sticking around, and there's also the potential that what they're obfuscating right now in saying Roger Craig Smith is back is he's back for now.
Yeah, I do think that that's what it's going to end up being, but cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah.
If we haven't gotten there already, I don't know what's happened between when we record this and when it goes up.
Yeah, ain't it nice having a buffer?
Yeah. How about that?
How about that? Let me see. Is there anything else I wrote down that I want to talk about? Oh yeah. I think Sonic the Hedgehog has always looked good in every single Sonic game that happened up until 06. And then I think after 06, he's not looked so great. Secret Rings might be an exception to this, maybe. I'm not sure. But since 06, especially in the game renders, Sonic has had a weirder butt brow and a weirder smile, and that, like, never went away.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. I think, like, yeah, because I'm trying to think, like, oh yeah, Heroes, he's a little over animated, but I like what the model is trying to do.
Yeah.
But definitely 06, he's definitely very funky looking in a lot of his renders. He looks great in the pre-rendered stuff.
Yeah. And all the pre-rendered animations.
Yeah, but in-game, for his official renders, he's weirdly tall. His quills are super long.
Yeah.
And then with the Unleashed model onwards, it's just not a good model. Like, it looks decent enough, but it's just not well constructed, or at least they don't know how to animate it as well as they should, which is very frustrating.
Yeah,
Because
for sure,
he
for sure.
he also looks good in the pre-rendered stuff, which is the pre-rendered stuff. So it's cheating.
Mhm. Another big thing for me is that ever since '06, he's had like the somewhat boxier torso shape that I
I
haven't
thought you were
liked
gonna
as
say
much.
I thought you were gonna say the shoes, which I also would have agreed with.
Oh yeah, the kind of stubbier shoes.
Yeah, his big clunky shoes. I don't understand why they did that.
Yeah. This isn't me like pinning something on '06. It's just something that I noticed. It's kind of weird because where '06 was enough of a catastrophic failure for the brand that so much changed after it, it's surprising that the visuals, the visual approach to Sonic as a character kind of didn't. Because like yeah, they made his legs shorter and his spine shorter after '06, and to some degree that's been something they've been doing every game since too. But a lot of other aspects of his design stuck. I don't really know why.
Yeah, it's the next gen Sonic.
Yeah, it just is the next gen Sonic. Yep, that might actually be part of it. They made that model for 360 and PS3, and that was their first major high definition console Sonic model, and everything since has been like that's the lens they view Sonic through.
Yeah.
Hmm. Anyway, that's something that mattered to me.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Other design stuff I noted down while I was looking at character gallery stuff in prep for this episode is I don't know if anyone has really understood Tails as well as Yasushi Yamaguchi, his creator.
Yeah.
Period. Tails has had times where he's looked really good in art renderings and models since Sonic 2, but my god, he looks so good. Sonic 2.
He needs to be a little guy. I do think that in the early Dreamcast 3D era, they did maintain that little guy energy in the new style, and that's important and worth considering. But as time went on, they made him taller and taller, and now he's just boring.
Yeah. He's like just a little shorter than Sonic, and it feels very weird. Looking back at his official art for Sonic 2, he doesn't really have legs. Like, not really.
Yeah, he doesn't need him.
He doesn't need them. The cuffs of his boots are pretty much right there. It's good. It's good character design.
Yeah. He runs with his tails.
Yeah. Other major thing that I had down was I don't like how Knuckles looks in modern 3D models either.
Oh, yeah.
They've really flattened his head down, which feels very strange. And his proportions overall have just gotten worse.
His hands are too big.
His hands are too big. His limbs are really thin. Like, really thin?
Mm-hmm.
And making his head feel smaller doesn't help either.
Yeah.
Incidentally, though... Oh, go ahead.
It's weird, because when I think of... I guess it is... okay. When I think of, like, ideal Knuckles, he's got a very, like, big chest. Like, his arms are the same size as everyone else's, but he's like, a little taller in the legs. And, like, we know how his head is supposed to look. But when I think of the model, it's definitely a lot more rectangular and square-like. And he's got a less interesting torso. Like, he's got the same torso as all the other modern characters.
Yeah.
And those two things, like, plus his dreads just being humongous, they kind of come together to make it seem as though everything on him is smaller. Because they're the same size as everyone else. But because his hands are so much bigger than everyone else's, and everyone else's hands are also huge, it then makes his, it makes his arms and legs feel even thinner, and his head, I guess, feels smaller.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I almost want to say his head feels bigger because the dreads are so much bigger.
I get you. I mostly look at like the proportions of his face relative to the height of his head.
Okay, then yeah. Like,
that's why he says he feels like flattened.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of like his brow and his dreads compromising the size of his head and face.
Yeah. Incidentally, the way that Knuckles was drawn in like official art before Uekawa was the main Sonic artist was super inconsistent ever since he was like first introduced, which is really funny.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just toss this out there. It's very specific, and you'll have to look up the art to understand what I'm talking about. But I think the best that classic Knuckles has been drawn in terms of like official game art before recent depictions in comics and like was in his art for Sonic Drift 2. I just like the proportions of his face and head in that, and it just looks good. He's got a good face. A lot of other artists that time just didn't get his face proportions right, and it was weird, and he looked really weird. I've also I've never been like the biggest fan of how Knuckles looks in the advanced games. I think part of that is similar criticisms I have for his modern model.
Mm-hmm.
Just overall body proportions.
I am okay with the advanced models. It's weird because in 3D, all of the issues that I have with Knuckles modern Knuckles, they're all in 3D because his 2D art doesn't have hands that are as big. He doesn't look as messed up in the head. So
yeah, I just think he looks like too long in like advanced 2 and 3 sprites. Not as much in advanced 1.
Okay. Makes sense.
I really like him in battle, though. I think Sonic Battle has ideal Knuckles proportions.
Makes sense.
That's my opinions lightning round. I nearly just knocked my tissue box off my desk. Thank you.
Oh, no. I had my opinions interspersed throughout the episode, so if you want to hear them, watch the episode again.
Yeah, you can go back and listen again. It'll be good for you.
Take notes this time. This will be on the test.
We'll be announcing the date of the test at a later date. We're still working on the fine details, getting it organized, sorting out a location. But be assured we will have all the information for you when it is appropriate.
Yeah. And, well, you know where you can find all the information?
Do you?
I do.
Where at?
On our Let's Talk About Sonic website at ltasonic.card.co. That's ltasonic.card.co.
Right, with 2 R's.
Yeah, and if you want extra credit, you can back us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/LTASonic. And if you back us, you'll get 100% extra points on your score, on your test score. Hello?
I'm trying to figure out if this is an illegal thing or not. I'm trying to figure out.
Well, it's our test. We decide the legality of the test. And hey,
I guess that's
you
true.
know what? If you want to stay after class, I could help teach you. You can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/MitsumiMario.
You can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/crappyblue.
We both do extracurricular study help with the test that's coming up, the Sonic test. But
I'm begging you, if you listen to this bit, please do not DM me for help with Sonic information. I will not respond.
I also won't help you. We're
gonna do one thing and one thing only. You want to tell them what it is, Mitt?
Well, first you're gonna get an F, because you're not gonna take the test and you're gonna be late. And then we'll see you in the next zone. Have a great summer!
Enjoy summer break.
See you in the fall.
This episode's going up in the fall.
That's awesome.